Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stu again, and this is Stu's News, a review of American High Speed Rail happenings over the last month. In this October 2024 episode, we'll take a look at what went down in September. Starting with Brightline West and the biggest news of the month, Senator Chuck Schumer got what he wanted.
Happy cows.
Brightline West's Siemens American Pioneer 220 train sets will be produced in New York State, specifically at Horseheads. This is a town of about 20,000 near the Pennsylvania border, roughly 80 miles from Dunder Mifflin in Scranton. To quote Senator Schumer, "It is not bad to have the majority leader from New York State." Brightline West released a few new renders in conjunction with the news. Remember, kids, never go in against a Schumer when death is on the line. In a related story, Alstom, maker of the Acela Liberty, which will be employed on the NEC, and Siemens' only competition for the Brightline West contract, filed a lawsuit against the Federal Railroad Administration, the Department of Transportation, and our favorite Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, claiming the Brightline West Buy American exemption in favor of Siemens was made improperly. The details are complicated, but Alstom's basic claim is that no other foreign company should be allowed to supply high-speed rail train sets in the way they were allowed. As a result, they want a court to force Siemens to build all of their high-speed power cars in the United States when the exemption allows them to build the first two in Europe for training purposes before switching to their future New York facility. This threatens to needlessly delay Brightline West, which already seems to be pushing it in terms of starting construction. The move feels punitive, petty, and monopolistic on the part of Alstom, which is sure to improve their reputation further. On the subject of construction, the FRA officially signed Brightline West's $3 billion federal-state partnership for intercity passenger rail grant promised last year. That money actually goes to the Nevada Department of Transportation first, and they have a few requirements Brightline West needs to fulfill before they hand the money over. This article in the Las Vegas Review-Journal indicates that heavy construction on Brightline West will start early next year. This was the only place I'd seen such a statement, so I reached out to Brightline West and they indicated that was indeed the plan.
Affirmative.
So 2025, here we come with the Brightline West construction coverage. Just a reminder, I will be out on the road covering that on at least a monthly basis, and I will have my drone with me. Click super thanks below the video to support that endeavor. Super thanks will go directly to funding video trips between Rancho Cucamonga and Las Vegas. On the development front, plans to build a casino resort next to the Brightline West Las Vegas station site seem to have stalled. That resort would be centered around a 20,000-seat arena hoping to grab an NBA team. The station site is located within one of the largest contiguous tracts of undeveloped land left in the Las Vegas area, totaling 250 acres, of which Brightline West owns 110. Continuing on the Brightline theme, but this time in Florida, Siemens has shipped 5 new venture carriages to Florida from their manufacturing plant in Sacramento, California. Brightline has been hamstrung by capacity limitations this year, and the 5 new cars will increase Miami to Orlando capacity by 12%. Another 5 are expected by the end of the year, with another 20 anticipated before 2026. These cars are running a little late, as the company was hoping to receive 20 by the end of this year. With the 5 new cars, Brightline Florida may facilitate as many as 2.8 million passenger trips this year, which is about 50% more than Pacific Surfliner in California, the best performing Amtrak service outside of the Northeast Corridor. In other news, the Stewart saga continues, and this time it has nothing to do with bridges. Community leaders suddenly and mysteriously pulled out of long-running plans to bring a Brightline station to Stewart, Florida. However, now Stewart is saying they're still interested, so who knows what's going to happen. That'll do it for Brightline, but let's stay on the East Coast and check out what's happening with Acela and the NEC. Construction on the new Connecticut River Bridge in Old Lyme, Connecticut officially broke ground at the beginning of September. The $800 million replacement of the existing 116-year-old bridge is expected to be finished by 2031. It is one of many Connecticut Railroad bridges on the NEC in the process of being replaced. In the aggregate, those bridges should result in a significant increase in reliability and decrease in travel times through the area. Voices in Baltimore, Maryland opposing the construction of the new Frederick Douglass Tunnel are getting louder, this time attempting to stop the transfer of necessary land from the city government to federal until a civil rights lawsuit against the project is concluded. This threatens to delay construction on its face, but opponents are also calling for relocation of a planned ventilation facility, which of course would require redesign and much longer delays. We'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. Work on the East River Rehabilitation Project will be kicking off soon. The plan there is to close and rehab one tunnel at a time. During those rehabs, service under the East River in New York City will be decreased, resulting in some equipment being idled. Amtrak announced that will facilitate shuffling of equipment around the country, which will open up a one-seat service between Chicago and Florida via Washington, D.C., essentially combining the current Capital Limited and Silver Star routes. That's it for NEC News. Let's quickly check the NEC Amtrak numbers. Keep in mind these reports run 2 months behind and are for July. Revenue and operating earnings down across the board month over month. If we look at the last fiscal year, June to July saw a similar decrease, so this is likely seasonal. However, numbers are also down year over year. The only exception was Acela operating earnings, which managed to eke out an 8% gain over the last fiscal year. Results are still looking good for the year, with ridership currently up 19% over last fiscal year. That'll do it for Acela and the NEC. Let's head west to our friends in Illinois. The Illinois High Speed Rail Commission continues to meet in the early planning stages of possibly upgrading the currently 110 mph passenger line between Chicago and St. Louis. In their latest meeting, they shared technical information, so now we know their functional priorities. I think the top 4 are a given, so let's move beyond that. Top priorities are connections to transit and travel times. Surprisingly, further down the list is serve as many people as possible and station location optimization. So they want it fast and transit oriented, won't necessarily hit all the big stops is the way I read that. Also at the bottom of the list, connect to airports. So much for ORD or STL. They are looking at a statewide concept centered around a high-speed trunk. This graphic gives an idea of cities they'd like to connect and how. They are going to consider many options, including existing rail and highway routes, as well as greenfield routing, in coming up with an ultimate recommendation. This results in a lot of possible ways to get between the two areas. As mentioned last month, they are at the very beginning of their process, but it should be fun to watch. Hopefully they're more ambitious than not. That'll do it for Illinois, but staying in the neighborhood, let's see what's cracking in Texas. Starting with general Texas news, politicians are considering and promoting the idea of new passenger rail between Austin, Texas and Monterrey, Mexico. This has the potential to be high speed. This would be about a 400-mile route running through San Antonio and Laredo. The route would reach metros with a combined population of over 10 million people. Nothing officially in the pipeline and still rather speculative, but it does include some important players, so something to keep an eye on in the years ahead. Moving on to more concrete news, Andy Byford, Amtrak's Vice President of High-Speed Rail Development, was in Austin for the Move America conference. There he outlined what Amtrak is currently up to in terms of the Texas Central Railway project between Houston and Dallas. That includes working on a business case study that will help them determine if backing construction of TCR is the way to go. Byford indicated that would take about 6 months. Conveniently, a few weeks prior, Amtrak received $64 million as part of the FRA's Corridor ID program. That money will go toward the aforementioned study. So Amtrak lining up the dominoes right now, but maybe too late for a significant FSP national grant this year. We'll see in the next couple of months. At the same time, the opposition in counties between Houston and Dallas is still loud and clear on how they feel about the project. If Amtrak does go forward, they will surely need to confront and/or placate opposition forces at some point. Still in Texas, let's move on to Dallas-Fort Worth high-speed transportation. While there hasn't been any change in the project itself, at the latest meeting of the North Central Texas Council of Governments Transportation Council, additional tools to get the job done were discussed, and among those was the resurrection of a Texas High-Speed Rail Authority to help oversee the state's various proposed projects. This would be done in conjunction with the Texas Department of Transportation and then through legislation, possibly in the next session. Naturally, Texans Against High-Speed Rail popped up to oppose the idea. That's enough Texas. Continuing to move west, let's check in with the High Desert Corridor. The HDC Joint Powers Agency put out a presentation greatly expanding public knowledge of future plans and alignment details. The agency now indicates the project length is 56 miles between the future site of California High-Speed Rail's Palmdale Station and the future site of Brightline West's Victor Valley Station. In Palmdale, north out of the station, the tracks would hook east where Sierra Highway currently crosses the existing Metrolink and Union Pacific tracks. The new right-of-way would weave its way through eastern Palmdale until settling into an alignment roughly paralleling Palmdale Avenue. This would continue through sparsely populated areas like Lake Los Angeles and Adelanto before having to squeeze between the Southern California Logistics Airport and the Victorville Federal Correctional Complex. Then over the Mojave River Valley in what would definitely be the most spectacular infrastructure piece of the project, a large bridge or viaduct which looks to be about 2,000 feet long. That would be pretty cool looking from Victorville and Interstate 15. The alignment would then connect with Brightline West near the large landfill north of Victorville, which is 3 miles southwest of the station site. That station would be located in the median of Interstate 15, just south of Dale Evans Parkway. All of that could, one day, facilitate single-seat high-speed rail rides between the Las Vegas area and all planned California high-speed rail stations. Speaking of California high-speed rail, let's see what's going on there. The San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority received a $54 million federal mega grant for their Madera station. The amount received, combined with funds already identified, should allow the SJJPA to have that ready for high-speed service when California high-speed rail gets there in the next decade. Speaking of money, outgoing California high-speed rail CEO Brian Kelly gave an interview to the Fresno Bee and was quoted as saying Phase 1 of the project is going to cost $130 billion. You heard that here months ago, by the way. I also think that's probably a conservative estimate considering when they're likely to get done. On to some good news. The city of Brisbane, California settled their lawsuit with the California High-Speed Rail Authority over the planned high-speed rail yard and facility there. I believe that wraps up all the pending lawsuits for Phase 1 except for Millbrae between San Jose and San Francisco, and frankly, they have decades to figure that out. More good news, the process toward a waiver of Buy American requirements for the procurement of California high-speed rail train sets has begun. The request is similar to the Brightline West request we spoke of earlier. The contestants are Alstom with their Acela and Siemens with their American Pioneer 220. It seemed like Siemens was the favorite thanks to Brightline West, but will Alstom's lawsuit make a difference? Public comments for that are open through October 7th of 2024. I will link that in the description if you'd like to add your 2 cents to the record. And now for some fun stuff. Republican California Assemblyman Tom Lackey from Palmdale introduced a bill to redirect $3 billion of California High Speed Rail's cap and trade funds into $100 gasoline rebate checks. Yep, California Republicans out there working on real and practical solutions. Look, I get it. It's frustrating being a Republican in California, but maybe if you take your jobs a little more seriously, there'd be more of you. The Finance and Audit Committee and the California High Speed Rail Board both had public meetings last month for the first time in a while, so I have numbers for you. Unfortunately, our first CEO report by new CEO Ian Chowdhury was a last-minute scratch. Capital outlay budget summary, not a good month at $120 million. That already puts them behind for the new fiscal year. They need to be spending more than twice that just to equal the underwhelming budget for the year. By the way, these numbers are for July because the reports run 2 months behind. Looking ahead, it doesn't get much better next month with a projected $137 million expended in August. Predictably, design-build expenditures were unimpressive, below average for the chart at $78 million. Risk contingency drawdown okay in absolute terms at $52 million for the month, but that's a lot considering they only spent $120 million total. Daily average workers over 1,500 for the 4th month in a row. It's just not showing in the results. Construction progress unchanged from the previous month. Utility relocations, they hit their year-end target 5 months early. By 5 months early, that would be 5 months earlier than a schedule that's been delayed by 3 years, but still encouraging in terms of a possible turnaround. CP1 earned value chart progress now close to keeping pace with the schedule. Even though they're slightly behind, the delay would only be a few months if they manage to continue to hang in there. That'll do it for California High Speed Rail. Now it's time for Stu's Boo Boos, where we go over everything I missed or got wrong last month. Another boo-boo free month. That's 2 in a row and another silver star for me. I also have some bad news for you. Remember that story about Alstom's lawsuit against the FRA? That was filed in July. I missed it. You all missed it. Even Bloomberg took 2 months to turn it into a story. That means you all lose a gold star. That brings the gold star total to 12. Silver stars for me, 5. Hey, don't worry, you're still way ahead. As always, if you find a boo-boo in this presentation or something I missed, let me know in the comments. If it's a good one, you win a prize. Another big thanks to the Lucid Group Discord channel for their assistance, and a special thanks to contributor G4. Please check out their model railroad themed podcasts at bgtmrring.org if you are so inclined. If you'd like to join our motley crew and perhaps get a shout out of your own, check out the Discord invite in the description. Plenty more videos to come. Up next, we'll take a closer look at one possible way Illinois high-speed rail could play out between Chicago and St. Louis at 200 miles per hour. Expect that on Monday, October 7th. But that's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you on that big beautiful freeway.